This episode is brought to you by JLL. Get an insider view into the world of commercial real estate with JLL's podcast, Trends and Insights, the Future of Commercial Real Estate. Whether you're curious about making cities more sustainable, the evolution of office space, or AI opportunities, this podcast will help keep you a step ahead. Tune in for candid conversations with business leaders about the biggest trends impacting how we live, work, and play. Subscribe to Trends and Insights now at jll.com/podcast.
Today on CityCast Boise. Once again, for the third time this session, the legislature has introduced a bill that targets libraries. Molly Nota and Aaron Kennedy with the Idaho Library Association are here to explain what's new with this bill, what's at stake if it passes, and how you can get involved to help your local library. It's Wednesday, March 20th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Molly and Aaron, thank you so much for joining me today. Molly, I wanted to ask you first, House Bill 710 is titled Idaho Children's School and Library Protection Act, and it was passed by the House last week. Can you tell me more about this bill?
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay, so much for having me and Aaron. We're so excited to be here. So basically, the premise of this bill is that a concerned individual can find a book on the library shelves and bring a complaint forward through a standardized form that this bill is calling for, which is basically similar to what we have in place already, a reconsideration form. You fill out this form, present it to the library staff or librarian. The board, basically, or a group of individuals, they can decide why they've purchased the item and where they've placed it. And then they provide justification. If the person who brought that original claim forward doesn't like that, and the book is not moved for whatever reason, they have 30 days to relocate it to an adults-only section. We don't know what that looks like. It's not clear at all in the bill. If it is not moved to this section, a private cause of action or an injunction can take place, which is basically the library board and the library gets sued, starting at $250. That is just the beginning, though. There's legal fees. There's anything that goes to court is costly. So I think that is the basic premise of the bill, and there are a lot of issues with the bill.
Yeah, Aaron, can you explain to me, if this does become law, what impact will that have on our libraries?
Well, because there are so many pieces of the bill that are vaguely worded and not really well defined, it's going to have a huge impact on libraries. Molly mentioned the adults only section. We don't have adults only section in our libraries. We do have adult sections, but anyone is allowed to go into those, walk around. It's just the way libraries work. And of course, school libraries don't have adult sections because they're for children.
I was going to ask you about that. Like, I go to the library with my kids, and if I need to go grab a book, I'm holding my son's hand, walking to the adult section. It's not adult only. My 9-year-old can come with me while I'm grabbing my book.
Absolutely. And particularly for our rural libraries, most of them are one room, some of them less than 1,000 square feet. Their adult section may be separated by their kids section by an aisle, basically between two shelves. They don't have room for anything else. So to create an adults only section would either mean creating an area that is restricted unless you can provide ID, which would also mean a staff person checking that ID. The sponsor has said you place the books behind the desk where no one can see them, and that would be restricted, but then that restricts access for adults, which the Supreme Court has already said is unconstitutional. So that's a big problem for libraries, particularly our small libraries.
I've heard some people say that this isn't really a ban on books, it's just a relocation, but moving something behind a counter so you can't even find it, or moving it to a section where people aren't allowed in, that sounds an awful lot like a ban. Is this a book ban?
Well, I think they can call it a removal all they want, but when you look at the way that we see book bans in library world, really when you're restricting access to a particular population, you're talking about a ban, particularly if those books are written for that population in the first place. So I don't agree with that. Again, the issue of schools as well. What adult section are schools going to move their books to? Schools don't have adult sections. So in that case, I think it is a ban because really you're looking at removal and not just moving the books.
It's also a forced relocation. It's like a mandate from the state saying that we don't trust our librarians, our libraries, our constituents, our patrons to make choices on their own about what books they and their family can access.
Absolutely. It's been really common that there's a bill aimed at libraries every legislative session for the past few years, but House Bill 710 is the third bill this session that targets libraries. What's going on? Why is the legislature spending so much time on these library bills, Molly?
That is a great question, Lindsay, and one that is exhausting to think about, to answer. You know, librarians and libraries, we just want to provide access to our patrons. We want to do our jobs. We want to be trusted in the roles that we've been trained to do. I believe this keeps coming up year after year, you know, because this isn't just a local issue or a state issue, it's a national issue. And I do believe that libraries are a very easy target to promote other agendas. And I also think that we are a small sector of community life and don't have a lot of money, and it's easy to come for us.
Yeah, Molly's right. It's definitely a national issue that grew out of a lot of response to the pandemic, really, when people were angry about mask mandates. Once that went away, they turned their attention towards books. Libraries are an easy target. We're also part of the public sector, so it's easy for people to say that they don't want their tax dollars going towards certain things, and libraries are perhaps the easiest target out of all of that. I do think that it's important to note that libraries have already and always had policies for people to request reconsideration of materials. That's not a new thing. When we look at the past 20 years in Idaho, we can see that we've recorded different challenges, maybe 2 or 3 per year, sometimes no challenges to books in a year. And that dramatically increased starting in 2022 and 2023 than last year. And you'll see that nationwide as well. I think the American Library Association just put out their most recent announcement showing that last year, more than 4,240 unique book titles were challenged across the nation. And what used to be one parent saying, "I'm not sure about this book, maybe you could remove it," has turned into pressure groups like Moms for Liberty and others saying, "We don't like these 400 books, move them or remove them all." So it's a different thing.
Proponents of this bill, like its sponsor, Representative Jaron Crane, say they're just trying to make sure that kids don't have access to obscene materials. Are there obscene materials in the children's section of the library?
No, there aren't. Particularly when you look at the test that is used to determine what materials are obscene, no books in our library would classify as obscene under that test.
What test is that?
That's the Miller test, and it was established by a Supreme Court precedent back in the 1970s in a case. And it basically says that a book has to meet 3 standards to be considered obscene. So it's whether it contains sexual content that someone finds offensive. It's whether it appeals to the prurient interest, which means it's only intended to excite someone. There's no other purpose. And whether it has no scientific, political, historical, or artistic value. So when you look at those three standards, a book might have sexual conduct. Very rarely, except in the instance of like a Playboy magazine, would it be solely intended to excite someone. But all of the books in our collections have some kind of serious literary value. So nothing qualifies.
Well, and I've noticed in the definition of all these bills under the obscenity definition, they all list homosexuality without any further explanation. It just says homosexuality. So that could be two men holding hands, or is that two women having a picnic and sitting close to each other? What exactly qualifies for that? That's not explained. And so how would that affect the collections that you're able to curate for our diverse community?
It really will, and I would argue already has in some libraries. It will create a chilling effect. So this chilling effect is librarians are scared that their board will get sued, which in turn could financially decimate a library system. So it means people are afraid to do their jobs and order anything that could potentially influence a bad actor to come in and issue a complaint. So it's devastating. It's against everything that we stand for as librarians.
As a parent, there are places that I do worry my kids could see something obscene or something that's too mature for them. And the first place that I think of is their phones and their computers, because it's 2024. So that's where kids are accessing a lot of their information and entertainment. So again, why is there this laser focus on libraries when that's not what kids have in their pocket 24/7?
That's a great question. And again, I think it goes back to libraries being an easy target, these books being very visible, and something that people feel they can legislate. Kids don't come to the library looking for books that have obscene content in them. That's not what they do. All of our computers in Idaho libraries are already filtered. So if they come here to get on the computers, they're probably safer than they would be at home. Idaho libraries are very safe for your kids in terms of the kind of information that they're seeing. And librarians take great pride in the information that they select to go on our shelves to make sure that it's serving all kinds of people who have all kinds of information needs. And I think it's really unfortunate that very certain types of materials are definitely being targeted by these types of bills. Anything with LGBTQ content, anything by and about people of color, those are the books that you're going to see either removed because librarians are afraid, or that you're going to see challenged, and in many cases challenged en masse, not just one or two, but hundreds.
Shipping can make or break a sale, so optimize how you ship your orders with ShipStation. They make it easy to automate and manage orders no matter how big your business grows. And they might even be able to help reduce shipping and warehouse costs. So optimize and keep up your momentum for growth with ShipStation. Sign up for your free 60-day trial now at ShipStation.com and use the code POD. That's ShipStation.com with the code POD.
Dreaming of a better sleep? Tossing and turning is not your destiny. And Ollie is here to help. Ollie invites you to sink into sweet, sweet slumber to improve your mental and physical health and overall wellness. More than just melatonin, Ollie's ingredients help you unwind your mind for a delightfully dreamy drift off. Sleep is on the way at Ollie.com. That's OLLY.com.
The debate over this bill was very heated, with Representative Crane saying that if this bill didn't pass, he would bring back the 2022 library bill that would make it so that librarians could be jailed, which kind of sounds like a threat, in my opinion. What kind of an impact does that rhetoric have on librarians?
Librarians are already feeling the impact from 3 years of attempted library legislation. Obviously, it's not a good feeling. We really just want to serve our communities with the very many things that we do. Libraries are about so much more than books. Yes, the materials we hold in our collections are critical, but we also have computers and Wi-Fi access for people who don't have it at home. We do job training programs and technology training programs. We have literacy programs for kids, kindergarten readiness programs, book clubs where adults who don't have anyone in their lives can get together with people. Molly is an expert at bringing programs out into the community, so she travels and brings them to seniors and other people who have a hard time visiting the library in person. This is so much what the library is about. When you hear that they want to possibly bring back legislation that will put librarians in jail, it's not a good feeling. We really just want to be serving our communities. And I think that kind of legislation, yes, it hurts librarians, but it really hurts the people that we serve most of all.
And we did survey some of our members, and so many of them are wanting to leave the state and wanting to leave the field. Some commentary said, why is it that our legislators don't trust us? Why do they have it out for us? And again, it's devastating to hear that we could go to jail for doing our jobs.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that report. It came out from the Idaho Library Association, and 60% of librarians who responded said they were considering leaving the profession or potentially leaving the state. Are you going to leave?
I don't have any plans to leave right now. I'm a fourth generation Idahoan. My family's been here for a long time, but it does weigh on you, and it's hard.
I am also a longtime Idahoan, grew up here, and I am worried about how this will affect our profession. And, I do worry about how a lawsuit could impact my library. And, I have a family. I have a little girl. I have a husband who is self-employed. So I really love what I do, and I believe in what I do. I will explore other options if I feel it's in jeopardy. And I think any reasonable person, I think a lot of people I know who work in libraries are doing that now.
And that's so devastating, because our communities are so benefited with librarians. But like you said, you have families, you have lives. Like this isn't just really a flippant thing. This could impact you for the rest of your life. It impacts your entire profession.
And it will impact the kids who need it the most. The resources in a library for a child who doesn't have an infrastructure to grow and learn. We grow up with a lot of the kids in our library. We are the people in an adult role that they come to when they need to get help. And that can be anything, that can be, I need the latest Calvin and Hobbes. I need help with this book report. My parent is a newcomer and doesn't speak, is learning English. Can I get them resources? And that is really the thing I think that keeps us up at night. Is it's really the kids who need it the most, and that we've seen benefit from day one from the library's resources and community.
So what are some ways that people can get involved and show support for our libraries and our librarians?
I think the most important thing right now is writing to your legislators, write to the governor, tell them that you don't support any censorial library legislation, that you want your libraries to be left alone to do their jobs, or just tell them a personal story about how the library has impacted you in a positive way. That's really what we need. We need people to speak out and to not be afraid to reach out to those people who are making the decisions.
Definitely. Op-eds in your local newspaper can be powerful too, but definitely calling, writing, and not giving up communicating your impact stories to legislators and representatives.
Perfect. Thank you so much for those ideas and tips. And thank you both so much for what you do for our communities. We appreciate you so much. And thank you for taking the time to come and talk to me today.
Well, thank you so much for having us, Lindsay. And thank you for continuing to shed light on what libraries are and what they do for our communities. Every little bit helps.
Thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends to help spread the word. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more local stories from around the city. See you then.